Yeah, prayer has high priority. Prayer is necessary for the Christian, said Lord's Day 45. And clearly, James agrees. In verses 13 and 14, he talks about three groups of people, and everybody should be able to find a place in at least one of those groups. Are you in trouble? Are you happy? Are you sick? To all three of these groups of people, James' message is the same, basically. Pray. Of course, people can be in all kinds of trouble. We know that many of James' readers were in a particular kind of trouble. They were treated poorly by those around them because they believed in Jesus. Persecution, bullying, ostracizing. For these Christians, it must have been a great temptation to give up on the Christian faith and to give in to social pressure and to downplay their commitment to Christ and maybe eventually just to leave the church. And James tells them, you must pray. Get down on your knees and worship God and lay out your troubles before Him. At the very beginning of his letter, James 1, the first few verses, James had already said, such temptations can actually lead to stronger faith, but you must endure. You must persist in your faith. And if you think you are too weak for that, you must ask the Lord for wisdom, and He will give it to you, but you have to ask. Don't just sit there passively and wait, but pray. Because prayer is an essential activity, and it's especially important if your faith is weak or challenged. There were also members in the churches who were actually doing quite well. And so James says, is anyone happy? Well, there were people happy. At the end of chapter 4, James had written to merchants who were quite confident, and a little too confident and boastful, in their prospects. And famously, James taught these people to place their optimism under the heading, if the Lord wills. To these and to similar people, James now says, well, if you are happy, if you're doing well, then pray a song of praise. The Greek verb he uses, the verb psallo, literally means to sing a psalm. Psallo, psalm, same word. And by that, he could mean either one of the 150 psalms in the Old Testament or a similar song of praise dedicated to God, praying by singing praises. If you are doing well in life, it is equally important to endure in your Christian faith and to avoid the temptation of boasting and arrogance and to submit yourself to the will of the Lord. And what better way to do that than to sing not your own praises, but to humbly sing the praises of the God who has given you success, giving thanks to Him for His goodness and blessing. And that is prayer too. And so prayer is an essential activity. Maybe even more so when things are going rather well. James' message is clear in these short statements here. In every situation of life, make sure to pray. Don't stop at being in trouble or being sick or doing well, but connect your circumstance of life to your relationship with the Lord, to your life before Him, and make that connection explicit by praying to Him. Not in general terms, but praying to Him in relation to what you are going through right now. Because prayer, you see, is a practical and central and essential activity of the Christian life. The Apostle Paul often talked about prayer. At one point he even writes, pray without ceasing, just don't ever stop. The Heidelberg Catechism calls it necessary for Christians, and it says it is the most important part of a thankful life before God. You cannot receive the great gift of salvation from God and then ignore Him by not praying. It's not only callous and ungrateful, but it leads to trouble. You need prayer. God doesn't need your prayer so much, but you need to pray. It is good for you. And it is the way in which God wants you to live with him.